Zita.
Thank you. As Donna said, I'm the Joint Chair of BARAC. Myself and Lee Jasper, who sends a message of solidarity, is not here today. He's also a co-founder. He's at a youth rally in the Midlands today, and so he's speaking at that event and running a workshop. Lee and I basically set up BARAC because we could see from past cuts that there was a need to mobilise black communities and to respond to the racism of these cuts, because there's no question in our minds that the cuts are racist. They discriminate on a lot of other grounds as well. But actually black workers, black communities, black service users, as well as women, people with disabilities, are going to bear the brunt of these cuts, and it's going to impact on them disproportionately. And so we saw an urgent need really to set up a campaign to bring together all the different groups that might be fighting racism and responding to the cuts, and to have some joined up working between trade unions, between community groups, between organisations that fight racism, and service users and people in communities. And we're sort of a broad-based coalition made up of all different organisations. There are campaign groups, there are individuals, there are trade unions, there are organisations like the 1990 Trust. We have lawyers, and you'll hear more from one of the lawyers that's involved in BARAC, Peter, after me, and barristers. And we think that because there is race legislation in the UK that's supposed to protect black people from discrimination in society and in the workplace. Part of our strategy is to challenge the cuts from a perspective of using legislation, using parliamentary procedures, but our Peter's going to touch on that. Literally, since we initiated, we started with no sort of financial backing, support, sponsorship. It was just myself and Lee. We built up quite quickly in terms of identifying people and inviting them to participate and join a steering group and start working with us and mobilising and organising. And we've literally been bombarded with requests to speak, run workshops, come out and join campaigns and assist campaigns. And what that's told us, the amount of requests that we get on a daily basis, is that there was a real need for a campaign like this, because we wouldn't have been, snowed under and literally dragged from pillar to post of people wanting us there and involved in campaigning if there wasn't. But there are whole sectors of the workforce that are not unionised and don't have the support mechanism in place, and it's important to work with those, faith groups and so on. So since we initiated, what we've done is we've gone out and held public meetings, not just in London, in Manchester, in Bristol, in Birmingham, Leeds, various cities and towns. We've been to Scotland, to Glasgow, where there are black communities, to try and get people involved in not just joining BARAC and participating in what we're doing centrally, but setting up their own BARAC structures in their own area. Whether they call it BARAC or it's a structure in place to organise black communities in that area, that's what's more important. And this has resulted in, I think, in some areas where black people wouldn't have necessarily had a voice, been given a voice. But there's still a lot more work that we need to do in that respect. There's more work that we need to do in terms of getting into various faith groups and getting into mosques and temples and churches and getting people in those organisations to come who have their own organisation structures. They can mobilise a huge amount of people, and there's still more work to do in that respect. We have monthly planning meetings, and they're open to everybody. So we're asking that people join our mailing list. If you can affiliate as an individual or as a branch or an organisation, please affiliate. We've got affiliation forms here. As I said, we started with no money at all, and I have to actually publicly thank my trade union, Public and Commercial Services Union, for giving us financial support to actually initiate what we were doing, and giving us facilities to do that, to print leaflets and so on, and to hold meetings. And to further our campaign, we do need some financial support. We literally survive off trying to find some money where we need some money to do the next thing that we're doing. So any help you can give us in getting your organisations that you're involved in or trade unions to affiliate your branches, that would be much welcomed by us. But it's not a requirement that you affiliate in order to be involved with us. So you can join the mailing list. There's a Facebook page. We will shortly have a website set up as well. But at the moment, all of our events are listed on our Facebook page and also on the Force Economy website. We've just issued a new briefing paper which is setting out how the cuts are going to impact on black communities and workers. And we know because black people are discriminated against generally in society, we're in the poorest areas geographically. We're in the lowest paid jobs. We're largely concentrated in the public sector and the voluntary sector, and the reason for that is because the discrimination in the labour market means that people have naturally gravitated more towards the public and voluntary sectors because they can't get a foot in the door in the private sector because of the huge discrimination and racism there. And therefore, those are the areas that the cuts are going to hit the hardest, which means that you know, we're going to bear the brunt of those cuts because black people are more likely to be concentrated in the lowest grades in the public sector, in the civil service where I'm based, and they're the ones whose jobs are going to be more under threat and under attack, more likely to be made to be sacked effectively. So there's a huge need for us to organise in the public and voluntary sector, but the cuts are going to hit housing, welfare reform, all of those things, education, because we're in those lower paid jobs, because the gap between white and black workers is actually widening. There's supposed to be, you know, a task force, government task force that's supposed to close that gap, and actually the gap's been increasing year on, year out over the last few years. When it comes to the attacks on students, looking at EMA, looking at the fees, Black parents are going to be in an even harder position in terms of trying to meet the costs of those. And the knock-on effect of that, what we're really concerned about is the impact on young black people in terms of the prospects and opportunities that are out there for them. Because if you can't get an education because you can't afford to fund it, you can't get into jobs because there are no jobs there, and you face discrimination when you do try and get a job, what is left? What is left for young people? And then that's where, you know, all sorts of other things happen to those young people because there's nothing for them. And I think that's really serious in terms of the long-term aim. That's something that we need to do. Now, everybody who's here in this room today are going to be activists in one shape or form, but what we've been saying at the public meetings that we hold is everybody needs to be an activist. This is too urgent. We can't afford to be complacent about it or think, okay, there's an anti-cuts group there, there's a union there, they can do it. We all need to be involved. And how can you run, you know, a campaign group against the cuts if you're not involving the people that are bearing the brunt of those cuts? They must be at the forefront. So what we're seeking from people who are running anti-cuts groups in their local area, in their borough, wherever it is that they're running it in their towns, that they engage with the black communities in the areas that they're in and involve them, not just tell them what you're doing, involve them, because actually, you know, we have a lot to contribute in terms of fighting racism, fighting discrimination, building campaigns against racism, and we're the ones facing the brunt of those cuts. Therefore, we've got a lot to contribute in terms of telling you, you know, what's happening and how it's affecting us. One of the things we're doing at the moment is we're building some case studies which will set up quite graphically how this will affect a black family. And we really want to work with as many organisations as we can. So if you're organising meetings, we can send speakers. We've got speakers in different parts of the UK, so we can send speakers to your meetings, BARAC speakers, but we're also happy to run workshops with you and you know, run joint meetings or to come out and do public meetings. If you can support us to get a room and mobilise people in your local area, we can come out and do that. I think I'll stop there and hand over to the chair again. Thank you.